Hi, a few months ago, back in October of 2018, I did a video about the granddaddy of all NuTone transformers, which is this. This is a transformer out of a NuTone N2500 or N2600 stereo music receiver, and it is by far the largest transformer that NuTone ever made. That video was about how I had rebuilt a 2500 for a customer, and I sent it back to him, and he put it all back in, and when he turned it on, it kicked the circuit breaker in his circuit breaker panel, and the lights all went out. It turned out that there was a short in the transformer, which is very unusual because I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. I was able to locate a replacement for him, which I sent, and he had his electrician install it, and that was all good. And I thought we would, and I made him send back the one with the short in it because I wanted to see it, and perhaps there is something we can do to salvage it and make it useful, even maybe not for a customer in their home, but maybe as a bench transformer or something like that. There's no reason to throw it away because these are about as rare can be, and the one I use here at the shop was probably one of the very last ones that NuTone ever had that you could order as a service center. It was a test kit that they used to sell. When I ordered it, I think it was the last one that they had. So let's go over what happened a little bit, and then we're going to take a look at this transformer. So this is the volume control on-off switch assembly out of an N2500, N2600. This is a good one. It's not the blown up one. And what we have here is we have a dual gang volume control, so one volume control pot for right, one volume control pot for left, and this large assembly on the back is a mechanical on-off switch. This is what turns the power on and off to the system when you want to use it or shut it off. And when you turn it, you can hear it go click. And that's the mechanical switch here. Now this is somewhat of a sealed unit. There isn't any easy way to take this apart to show you what's inside. And these wires here, these are high voltage wires, and basically what you have is the way the installation is supposed to be done. You're switching the hot leg, the black leg, through the switch. The neutral is wired up to the transformer permanently, and so for instance the hot lead, the black, comes in on the red wire to one contact in the switch, and then out the brown wire to the junction in the wall housing, and when you turn the switch on, it closes the connection in the switch and the power flows and the transformer turns on, and then your system will work. So what happened in this one was, because of the short in the transformer, it blew the snot out of the contacts in the on-off switch, and they were pretty much gone. They were just arced and broken and gone. It would never work again. Fortunately, I have a few replacements, so we were able to replace the assembly. And you can actually see here inside this 3-pin Molex connector. This is the connector that actually plugs into the socket on the back of the N2500 receiver to make the connection. You can see that it's all charred inside. You can see the black, and inside it's all charred. And actually the hot lead, which is the center one, the hot that goes to the transformer, it's actually all arced over and burnt away down in here. So this is very bad. And like I say, I don't think I've ever seen one of this happen before. So the first indication that it could be bad is you got to give it the sniff test. And it does have that sort of acrid burnt sugar smell that you get when windings in the transformer sometimes go bad. And then the next thing we're going to do is we can measure the resistance of the primary coil. And we can do that with a multimeter, which you can see right here. Sorry about the reflection. That's the lights above the workbench. And if we go ahead and hook this up with our multimeter, this is the good one. We get about 3.1 ohms. Which is very close to what the service manual book says the resistance of the primary winding should be. I also verified that on a second good one that I have, my bench transformer, to make sure it was reasonably close, and they are. And if we do the same test here on the one that the customer sent back with the short in it, this is a little tricky to do. If you had 3 hands, it would be easier. If we do that, we have 0.5 ohms, half an ohm. Now you may think, well, the difference between 3 and a half, it's not that far apart, but it is on a transformer. So it could be that the winding is short. What could happen to this is if you have a failure in the enamel insulation on the windings, that would cause it to short out. The other thing, which I'm hoping may be the case, put this out of the way, is you can see here on the bell, this is the bell cover of the transformer, and it has these 2 large holes in them, and it's where all the wires go in, and this is all sort of gunked or potted inside, and you can see that the neutral and the hot go in through the same hole, and it looks to me like the neutral is a little bit close to the edge of the hole right here, and maybe it's worn through somewhat and it's shorting out on the case. I don't know, but we're going to find out. So to do this, we have to take this apart, and we're going to take off these nuts and the spacers. When this is installed, it actually mounts above the wall housing where the receiver goes, so all of this is up inside the wall cavity, and only the wires come through an opening in the wall housing behind the 2500 receiver. So you don't usually get to see these very often, and that's what these spacers are for. They're like the legs that it sits on, and then it bolts to the top of the wall housing. So we'll put those there, and luckily I found a deep socket that fits the nuts, and with a little luck we might be able to get these to loosen up. There's one. That's 2. 3. This one is being a little stubborn. There's some of the potting material. Potting is are different types of so they're sort of like sealants that are used in all sorts of electronics to seal things against water or moisture or things like that. In transformers, potting is usually used inside to help cut down on the noise or the buzzing that's inherent in a transformer. And just chipped it away there a little bit because it looks like they were overly generous with it. And it was all wrapped up around the nut. So there's our 4 nuts. We'll put those aside in case we can salvage it. And now what we have to do is we have to get the cover off, and perhaps we'll get a little bit lucky and we'll be able to crack it open. This could be the very first time anyone has ever recorded opening up one of these transformers. I don't know exactly what we're going to find on inside. I know it's going to be your pretty basic transformer. It's going to have a bobbin and it's going to have windings around it, but more than that I'm not sure. Of course, these wires are kind of stiff, and what's going to be particularly interesting is at this end you have this 3, 6, 9 pin Molex connector with all of the secondary wires on it, and I don't really want to take all that apart, so we're not going to be able to take the cover all the way off. We'll have to leave it in place some. But that'll be okay. Oh look, so now we've got the outer cover off, and now we seem to have another cover on the inside. Swell. I think it's a cover. See if it's magnetic. No, well, no. See, the laminations are metal. but this is not. So that brings up the question of what is it? Let's have a closer look. It looks like it's okay, so the shape of it is the inside of the cover, and I think what they did was they injected the potting material through the holes in the cover, and it kind of filled up inside, and when it got hard it formed this casing around the windings. That's all very interesting. So I'm not sure exactly how this is going to go. We're primarily concerned around this side. And it does smell bad the further I get into it. There's actually a crack in it right there. And this is fairly thick. I guess we'll have to get a little more serious about it. Now, we should be able to get something done now, don't you think? My guess is it seems like it's some kind of resin or epoxy. And I was hoping that this would be easy. Should have known better. Now I seriously doubt that NuTone actually made this transformer. They probably sourced it out to another company. Well, we're making some progress. So you can pull the wires this way some now. There's some kind of fibery material. Could be paper, it looks like. Probably wrapped around the bobbin to some degree. Yep. So there's paper. Got a big old chunk of it off now. See, the whole corner is missing. Whatever it is, it's fairly brittle, which actually helps because it wants to come off in pretty good sized chunks, more or less. So here's this part right here. This is a plastic cover. It's like a plastic sheet. So we're getting down close to where the windings are. I have a feeling that my idea of the wires being shorted on the case isn't going to work. I don't think that is the case. Let's take our multimeter here. I think you can see that, and if we check it here, oops, need this one. We still have about a half an ohm, and I've got, the wires are well out of the area of the hole of the cover, so I don't think that's the case. So the question is this worth going further on, or is it just a lost cause? And I have a feeling that if all of you had some way to vote, you would say keep going. Because it's not like we're really risking much here. Because if it is a shorted winding, there's no hope of using this again. And I have a feeling that's probably the case. Let's see if we can get this edge off. There are people that can rewind transformers. There's a fellow that I've used before. He's in Maine, of all places. And he's got some kind of vintagey machine that was used to manufacture transformers back in the day. And if you send him a blown up transformer, you can include, and you have to send him the specifications, you have to be able to tell him what the voltages are and so forth. He can actually disassemble a transformer and then rewind it back to the original specifications, and you can put it back in your device. You would only do that really if it was a super rare transformer that you couldn't possibly get a replacement for. The only occasion I've ever had to do that, and there's a little copper wire here, so we're getting down towards the windings, I think, but I have a feeling that the potting is underneath the plastic cover also, which means getting to it is probably going to be next to impossible. I don't think we're going to find windings. Here's a copper wire right here that's coming out of the windings, but yeah, we're well into the area where the wires are now. And I have a feeling the whole thing is potted inside. So I can tell you that, again, smell-o-vision, it has that distinctly acrid smell of a burnt up transformer. So I'm pretty sure I can see some of the windings, but we're never going to be able to disassemble it enough to really see what's going on inside. It's not like all of this is just going to come off and we're going to find the answer. Like, here's a line and it's got one of these other wires soldered to it, or this is the end of one of these wires and then part of the winding is soldered to it. So we're well down into the core area, and this is all whatever the epoxy or resin material is also, it's all in there. So this is a completely potted transformer, which means it's all sealed up inside. And the way this would have been done, I'm pretty sure, is I think it would have either been, I don't know, perhaps it was dipped at some point, or perhaps it was injected through the holes in the cover. I don't know exactly how they do that, but I'm pretty sure at this point that this is a lost cause. I'm not going to spend a lot more time on it because I've got a lot of other things to do. But one of the things we will do, and it's a good way to show this, is while the transformer itself is pretty much useless, it's toast in the greatest sense of the term, what is good are some of its bits and pieces. And we certainly can salvage some things from it that could be useful sometime in the future. Perhaps this wiring harness assembly with the 9-pin Molex connector and all of this. It's not like I have any spare ones of these. This is now a spare part that we can use. These wires can easily be attached onto other wires, and either I can use it to make some kind of test setup if I needed to do that, or and what kind of test setup would that be? Well, perhaps since these are divided up into pairs or sets of 3, depending on how it's being used, without looking at the wire at the schematic, I'm assuming the green is a ground and the orange is something else, and then we have a yellow, a red, and a red with a yellow stripe, or perhaps it's yellow with a red stripe. I'm not sure. My guess is that this is probably some sort of center tap output of the transformer. So what's a center tap output? Well, most of the time what most people are used to is transformers have 2 connections where the power is put out. So let's say that this is a 20 volt transformer. So you have to measure across here, you get 20 volts. Well, on a center tap transformer, you would have 3 wires, and we're going to put the yellow with the red stripe in the center. So if you measure between red and yellow, you get 20, but if you measure between the center wire and the red, you get 10, and center wire and yellow, you get 10. So there are a few NuTone intercom systems that use 3-wire transformers that have a center tap, and this would be my guess. I haven't looked this up, so I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's probably close to being right. And we have the same thing here. We have, interestingly enough, we have 2 blues and a blue with a yellow stripe, or yellow with a blue stripe, depending on how you want to look at it. And this could also be a center tap. Tell you what, let me get the service manual and we'll see. So we consult our service manual, and this is the real deal, printed 1972. Gotta love it. You can't do better than a real service manual with real fold-out schematics and diagrams. This is one of the most useful ones. This is the interconnect wiring diagram for it, and it shows all of the wires that connect all of the boards, all the board-to-board interconnect wires, which is a total pain in the neck to deal with if you don't have something like this. So it's important to have that, and what we need is we need to find the page that shows us our transformer 8-wire power assembly. But what we want is, we want one that has the voltages, not just how it plugs in, so that doesn't tell us. I know it's in here because I think I've skimmed over it sometime in the past. And see, you also have here, you have 3-page fold-out schematics. And hard to beat this. When you're working on something, you spread it out like this. It's like the way to go. So if we look at this one, let's see if it says. So this is power supply, and it should show our transformer, which it does. However, on off, doesn't give us any voltages. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. Because this is an old school NuTone service manual. They don't make service manuals like this anymore. In fact, they don't make service manuals at all. They just leave it all up to us to figure out how things are supposed to go. Okay, so here's what we've got. Here's our diagram. For those of you who are interested, I'll hold it there for a second so you can see it. Okay, now you got a copy of it too. You can also download this manual off our website if you really need it. So what I see here on the diagram is the blue, blue, and yellow with the blue stripe. It's actually blue with a yellow stripe because that's what the diagram shows. This is a center tap, and then the other ones, the yellow, the green, the yellow, red with yellow, the orange, and the red, those are all multi-taps, which means one set of windings with taps at different points in the windings to tap off different voltages. And if we look at our diagram here, if we hold this the right way, it goes this way. If we hold our connector the right way, I can tell you that, let's see, that goes down like that. So the blue and the blue and blue with the yellow stripe, the center tap, is the two blues are 46 volts, which would mean the center tap, it doesn't specifically say this, but it would be sort of a given that the center tap would be 23 volts. So you've got 23 center to one side, 23 center to the other side, and 46 on the two blues. And then we move down to the next row down, and that gives us our green and orange wire. And it says the green and orange are 26 volts, and that's not a center tap, that's just standard. And then we have our yellow, red with yellow, and red, and that shows that as being 40 volts, and that is a center tap. So you would have between the yellow and the red would be 40, between the center, the red with yellow, and the yellow is 20, and red with yellow and red would also be 20. So you've got two center taps. Your transformer has two sets of secondary windings. One's a multi-tap, one's a center tap. So this is useful. I think what this would be most useful for perhaps in some time is you could use this if you want to measure the current from the transformer, the current that the receiver is drawing. You could use this to splice a multimeter in line and measure current, which could be useful in troubleshooting at some point. I don't think I've ever had to do that, so I'm not sure if I ever would, but you never know. And besides, we're not going to throw it away because it's a perfectly good connector with original wire, so it's got some use to it. The rest of this, not so much. It's messy and it's got the resin potting epoxy stuff all through it and everything, so unfortunately doesn't happen around here very often. This is going to go in the trash because it's got no usefulness. There's nothing I can do with this. I don't need a boat anchor here as a transformer just sitting around taking up space. So this is going to go in the trash, but at least we're able to salvage the wiring harness out of it. So that's sort of the end result of our mystery shorted out transformer. I don't know why it would have shorted out internally. Like I said, 32 years of doing this, I've never had or heard of a case where one of these had failed. So, you know, fortunately, I've got two other ones, one I use all the time, one extra one, and of course, I'll be on the lookout for a third to replace this one because you never know. If it happened once, it could happen again. I hope you found this interesting and perhaps helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube because that always helps. There'll be a banner right here that shows you how to subscribe. Go to our YouTube homepage, click on the bell or on the wheel, put in your email address, and every time we post a new video, you'll get a notification and you can watch it. That's all for today. See you on the next video.